So you want to start with 4 large eggs in a food processor. If you want to do this by hand, you can. And I'm going to add 3 egg yolks. And you see how nice and orange these are because these chickens are fed with wonderful grains. You whip that up. And you whip those up, and then we want to add some flour. This, farina di grano tenero, tipo dopo zero. So this is comparable to a high-protein flour at home that you can find in your grocery store. And you can find some Italian flours at home as well. So we've got that, and also we've got cornmeal. And this is cornmeal because we're in the Piedmont, and they use a lot of cornmeal in the Piedmont. So I've got a cup of cornmeal added to the 4 cups of all-purpose flour, and you just want to mix that together. When you start to see that moving around as a mass, you know that you've added enough flour. Okay, I think it's trying to tell me something, so we're going to take this out now. And that was just enough flour. I wouldn't have wanted to add any more. We're going to have to let this dough rest a while to relax the gluten that is in this dough. And then we'll be able to put it through our pasta machine. And this is typically served with a leek sauce. Cover it and let it sit there for about 30 minutes. So while that's resting, you and I will make the leek sauce. So we're going to put those in. And let them cook down until they're soft, at which point I'm going to give them a little bit of salt. And then we're going to add some cream and some broth. So this part you have to be patient with. Now these leeks have really cooked down. You can see they've reduced in size here, and they're starting to get extremely soft. So this is the point where I add the cream. So I've got this over low heat, and we want to add a cup of heavy cream very slowly. Now you're starting to get the picture that this is a very rich dish. And cream here in Italy is so rich, so delicious. I don't know, they must have better cows than we do. So you get that all in and mix it around. And then you have some broth ready. You can either use a chicken broth with this, or you could use a beef broth if you wanted to. You could use a vegetable broth if you didn't want to use either of those. So here is my hot broth. I'm going to add it. And then just see where I am with this. And let this cook. You want to let this cook for about, I would say 10 minutes or so, but over very low heat. And you notice I'm using a long, thin pin. This is the type of pin that my grandmother always used. I prefer a thin pin like this. But the rule of thumb is this. You have to be able to see your hand behind the sheet of dough. And I think you can see that I can see my hand under this piece of dough. Now that we have this, you may have to let your sheet of dough dry just a little bit so it doesn't stick through the rollers, because here we have 2 rollers on the machine. We have the fettuccine cut, which here in Piedmont would be similar to tagliatelle. And then we have here a much finer cut, thinner cut, which is a vermicelli cut, which is often used for soup pasta. So if the dough is too wet, it's going to stick, and it's not going to come apart. The strands will not come apart easily enough. So if that's the case, then you want to just sprinkle your sheet with a little bit of flour, not too much. I always say it has to sway like a grass skirt. You know why? I know I've got just enough flour in this. You see how it's not sticking? Looks nice, huh?